Okay, my first question, and I have to put glasses on to read these, goes to Gordon Gill, who founded the firm with Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill. The firm has been involved in designing and building the tallest building in the world in Dubai. They also were involved in the Union Station Technology Center in South Bend, which is a $1.2 million under-roofed high-tech center to attract technology jobs to Northwest Indiana. Your designs encompass quality of life, environmental considerations, technology, and adaptive reuse projects. You're ready for the question? Or do you want to call a friend? Okay, so Gordon, with that background, what is the Greater South Shore Initiative, and why is it important for that Chicago South Bend 90-mile corridor?
Thanks, Rick. I don't think anybody has as much energy as Todd Young, but we'll just start there. I'm not sure if everyone can see on the screens. We have a couple of slides we can get through. Can you see this? No, there you go. And if I do that, there you go. Okay, so, for us, when we were asked to participate in this conversation, it was really a very powerful moment because we really think about kind of a national platform and where we stand. It was really great to hear Congressman Mervyn talk about global competitiveness. So we take the position of looking at this region as a fantastic opportunity to position not just the Greater South Shore along south of Michigan, all the way from Indiana through Illinois, but also to kind of look at that as an example, a national example of where we need to take this country. We've been very lucky over the last 15 years to work around the world in China, Eastern Asia, Middle East. And I can tell you with my hand on my heart that this is a globally competitive subject. And when we talk about the assets that this region has, this 90-mile asset, this latent asset, we think about, obviously, the Great Lakes, the freshwater system. We think about national security. We think about commuting. We think about logistics. We think about resilience of the country when we talk about East Coast versus West Coast, South Coast, kind of in the heart of the center of the hub of this country, very well protected from natural disasters. And we also think about people. At the end of the day, the greatest asset that we have are our ability to train the people that we have here for the next generation of technology. And that's what gets us excited about it. We know from our work 12, 15 years ago when we looked at the core of Chicago, and we talked about energy and shifting energy and looking at technology and the role that technology plays. We know what can be done with kind of abundant assets. We know what can be done with circular economies. We know what can be done with net zero energy and zero waste. And we think that all of the combination of things that are happening here are perfectly aligned. I think it's fantastic to see today the leadership that's coming on stage and talking about commitment at almost every level, local, state, national. I think we couldn't ask for a better opportunity.
Thank you, Gordon. Can I follow up a question? You designed the Union Station project in South Bend. That's an adaptive use project that was previously a Studebaker site. How does that connect the building and the city and the people together?
Well, when we talk about looking at the Greater South Shore as a 90-mile platform, and we think about things like quantum communication, and think about energy, and think about the role that technology plays in that, the built environment, the existing building stock, the new building stock, we see an opportunity to convert that stock as being part of that infrastructure. So when we think about the right-of-ways that are available to us, a lot of the highway systems and the networks that we have, running fiber, running data, looking at quantum communications as the next generation, the next leapfrog. I don't think we should be looking at, what's available in our competition. I think we should be leapfrogging forward and thinking about 10, 15, 20 years. And the way we talk about it is if you're not thinking about quantum communications, if you're not looking at the building stock and not incorporating that in a kind of holistic way and thinking about that as a complete energy platform, with a core about quality of life and the way that people live, then you're basically operating in a cloud of obsolescence. You are not going to be competitive in about 5 to 10 years. And we think this is why we're here. We're very lucky to be part of this conversation, and we see the opportunity. We see the diamonds at our feet, and we're ready to go.
Thank you. The next question goes to Cordell Carter II, a Notre Dame graduate with a... He thought the fan base would be out there for him. Any Purdue fans out there? I told you, Cordell, there's more Purdue fans here. He has a doctorate degree in doctor of jurisprudence. He serves on the Aspen Institute, a nationally and worldwide acclaimed think tank. He's a critical thinker focused on assisting communities, including private and public sector, through education and facilitating productive discussions on the issues of the day. Cordell leads the Socrates program at the Aspen Institute, and I asked him not to ask any questions today, to seek understanding. So Cordell, here's your question. Why is it essential for the greater South Shore to be connected, and what critical thinking must take place for us to be successful?
Great. Well, thank you so much for the question, and I'll start with the second half of the question rather than the first. Why is it critical to have this partnership now?
He's already asking questions.
I'm sorry, I can't help that.
4 minutes left.
Yes. So I'm fortunate enough to travel quite a bit, not only around the country, but around the world. And what you see, that's one of the reasons we're very exceptional, is our federalist system, this notion that at a state level, you can make a lot of decisions, a lot of investments that you don't really have to engage the feds unless you want money from folks like Todd Young, right? Because it comes with conditions, but the Fed can't make you do anything, and that's a very different approach. But times are different, okay? We're still contending with an 18th century governance model in the 21st century world. We are losing ground. And over the last 5 to 7 years, you can pick a reason why we've kind of backed up from our global responsibility. We're losing that peace dividend. That peace dividend meant that your products were favored over other people's products because the United States of America is financing these organizations that are maintaining global order. We're in a new order. I am not personally prepared to live in a world in which the United States is not a hegemon. Call me a nationalist, but I need us to be number one. That's better for me, all right? And we're increasingly finding that the terms of engagements are changing. The rest of the world didn't stop producing, didn't stop collaborating because we decided we want to fight more amongst ourselves. Okay, so it's critical now to do something exceptional. And what's exceptional is to partner across states. For all of you to take your competitors from Illinois, from Wisconsin, from Michigan, and together go to the Hill, Capitol Hill, and say, this is what we want as a region. Okay, this investment, this 50-year investment, is going to change the regional economy for the next 50 years. Okay? Our children's children will benefit from this. And this is something that's possible. We have a window, and it's closing very quickly. In other countries, they're working, folks. They're working. And so I think that's the most critical thing you can do right now for the South Shore Initiative. This is a start. You would want it to circle the entire Great Lakes region eventually. And just imagine all of the economic developments can come from the fact that people can get to goods and services into different cities faster. That's what other countries enjoy. This is normal for them. It's not normal for us, and it should be.
Follow-up question for you as well. You mentioned other countries and so forth. Have you been engaged in any other discussions with other countries regarding what they're doing in the same line that we're doing?
Absolutely. So I had the great fortune of spending fall of 2016, a momentous fall, might I add, in China. And I was looking at the innovation ecosystem. I was there for about 6.5 weeks. And while I was there, it was announced. My host was the Ministry of Education. And they said, we're going to move the capital 90 miles towards the water because there's too much pollution in Beijing proper. I'm like, that's interesting. So I'm traveling around 5 weeks later. When I tell you there was rail on the ground, I've never seen anyone move that fast, right? They don't recognize different states. They're just like, we need to do this for the good of the country, for economic development. Now, I know what you're saying. That as a communist system, they're different from us, but but I've never seen so many capitalists in China. There's more capitalists there than here, trust me, okay? They're about economic growth in all facets. They're a middle class. This is defined by people that make at least $70,000 US or more. It's 580 million people. That's bigger than the middle class of the population of the US and the EU. And so their domestic demand alone demands they do something different. And so they're great for what they do in terms of infrastructure, and that's their greatest export. You also look at the Seattle region. So this is where I spent most of my middle school to high school and college there. They fought for 30 years to get a light rail system that would connect the airport to Bellevue, which is the east side of Seattle. Lawsuit after lawsuit, starts and stops. It was a mess. They finally got about 9 miles of rail done in 2009. That is now being expanded at a tremendous cost to the places they were intended to go at the beginning. They can see the benefit of it. Oh my gosh, people get places faster. There's less pollution. You don't have to drive as much. Who would have thunk it, right? But had these folks have gotten together and said, you know what, I don't care who gets the credit. Our region needs it. They couldn't get out of their way, and now they're paying 10 times now. It would have cost 25 years ago to do it. And that's why I fear for this region. If you don't do it now, it's going to cost you 10 times as much later.
Thank you. Good comment. Next question, I'm smiling before I ask it. It's good. To our U.S. Senator Todd Young. First of all, Senator, you heard from the Congressman Ravan, and thank you, Ravan, for your comments today. Your involvement in supporting Northwest Indiana for the national park, along with former Senator Donnelly and Congressman Wisconsin, we appreciate that bipartisan effort. You also supported the double track in the West Lake County extension of the rail, commuter rail, and that kind of bipartisan support we appreciate. We appreciate you being up here in Northwest Indiana. The One Region Board has met with him in the past, and he has been engaging and willing to listen, so thanks for coming today. The Senator also serves on the United States Senate Committees on Commerce, Science and Transportation, and Small Business Entrepreneurship, all relative to our topics that we're talking about today. Recently, in a bipartisan effort with 7 Republicans and 6 Democrat senators, you co-sponsored the Endless Frontier Act, subsequently named or renamed the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, which is focused on boosting research on the fields of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and expanding chip manufacturing in the United States. Can you give us a status update on these bills and how said legislation may influence Northwest Indiana?
Sure, thank you, Craig, and thank you all for having me here today. The US ICA is once in, not a generation, but once in 3 or 4 generations sort of opportunity, and Senator Schumer and I, who are leading this initiative regarding. It is predicated on the notion that at a time when we are emerging from a global pandemic, at a time when we are experiencing inflation and bottlenecks in our supply chain, at a time when, frankly, you've seen the convergence of globalization and urbanization and a 4th industrial revolution, a whole lot of people feel underutilized or unused in this modern dynamic economy. We have the ability to invest in ourselves at a time when the Chinese Communist Party is applying a very heavy weight of investment in 21st century technologies and in the education of our people so that we can develop these technologies and work with them so that we can outgrow, outcompete, and out-innovate the Chinese Communist Party, and at the same time ensure that all of our people benefit from higher value-added jobs and the material wealth that comes with those jobs. We need to invest in the heartland. Silicon Valley's doing great. Austin's doing just fine. Seattle's doing well. The Research Triangle of North Carolina is doing just fine. But if we look at our own economic history, those areas benefited handsomely from federal investments. We need to make the same sort of federal pre-market investments in applied technologies. Things like semiconductors, things like quantum computing, artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, battery storage, green energy technologies. And you know what? We have so much of that expertise right here, as you've been hearing today, right here in the region. So the legislation calls for an increase in investment through our fine universities like Purdue and Notre Dame and so many other research universities. It also calls for additional investment in education so that all of our people benefit from these investments. And the last thing that is certainly worthy of highlighting is it designates different tech hubs around the country, up to 18 different tech hubs. And you think of the core competencies of this area. This could conceivably be the future location of an advanced manufacturing tech hub, or a semiconductor tech hub, or quantum computing. So this, in the end, is an investment in human capital and national security at once. And I should mention that in the wake of the Chinese recently launching a hypersonic vehicle, these hypersonic vehicles can avoid our national security early warning systems and our tracking systems to detect missiles that deliver nuclear weapons. It's essential that we catch up in hypersonics as well. University of Notre Dame is partnering with Purdue University on hypersonic development. They arguably lead the United States of America in this area. Senator Schumer and I, and working with other senators on both sides of the aisle, have developed a way to ensure that there's not free riding occurring. But instead, for each US dollar we spend in these areas, the previous administration estimated we could crowd in 5 US dollar equivalents from our partners and allies, coming up with common standards as we develop these technologies, standards that are consistent with our values as opposed to the Chinese Communist Party's values. So when you're developing artificial intelligence, you want to make sure there aren't any inappropriate biases towards certain genders or race or ethnic groups. That's not something you'll see in the China-developed artificial intelligence. When it comes to our semiconductors, we want to make sure there are no back doors into listening to our communications or getting eyeballs into our private lives. That's, again, not something you'll get in some of these techno-authoritarian nations. So this is something that I believe will pass in coming weeks in conjunction with the National Defense Authorization Act. There's a broad base of support for it, and Indiana especially stands to benefit significantly from this legislation.
A follow-up to that point, is there anything that the residents and business owners here should do to encourage the passing of the bill?
Continue to invest in our existing institutions. Let's continue to optimize our Purdue campus up here. Let's continue to invest in our people, our greatest national asset. I absolutely agree with that assessment. Let's find ways with our existing state and local resources to build better infrastructure. And if we create a more fertile environment, we're going to land one of these tech hubs. We're going to attract more investment. More people will relocate to the state of Indiana. More venture capitalists will come visit Indiana to start their new businesses and invest in our future.
Thank you.
Yes.
Cordell.